Power is ruthless. It demands clarity or it crushes you. There is no mercy for hesitation, no room for weakness. The world does not care if you break beneath its weight. You either become ruthless or you are consumed. This is the only law that matters. The comfortable lie society tells you is that power can be kind, that leadership can be gentle, that influence can be wielded with clean hands. But strip away the pleasant facades and you find a brutal truth. Power is a predator, and predators devour the weak without ceremony or remorse. Look around you. Every throne was built on the bones of those who hesitated. Every empire rose from the ashes of those who thought fairness was a strategy. Every fortune was carved from the failures of those who believed the world would reward their kindness with reciprocal gentleness. This is not cynicism. This is clarity. And clarity is the first weapon in the arsenal of those who refuse to be victims. Forget illusions of fairness or kindness. Power is survival, and survival demands strategy sharpened by brutal clarity. Niccolò Machiavelli, history's coldest political realist, uncovered the anatomy of power with surgical precision. He revealed that morality is optional, ruthlessness is essential. To wield influence, you must be feared, respected, commanding, impossible to ignore. This is not self-help, it's a manual for warfare disguised as leadership. Machiavelli wrote during the bloodiest period of Italian history, when city-states devoured each other with mechanical efficiency. He watched noble families rise and fall within a single generation. He witnessed virtuous leaders destroyed by less virtuous but more strategic opponents. He saw that the world's harsh mathematics rewarded calculation over conscience, strategy over sentiment. His conclusions were not born from cruelty, but from observation. He dissected power like a physician dissects a corpse, seeking to understand the mechanisms that separate the victorious from the vanquished. What he discovered should terrify anyone who still believes in the fairy tale of moral leadership. The powerful never achieved their position by being the most ethical. They achieved it by being the most effective. They understood that power is not a moral category, but a practical one. It doesn't care about your intentions, your character, or your noble goals. It cares only about your capability to seize it, wield it, and defend it against those who would take it from you. Machiavelli was not a villain. He was a prophet of reality. He dissected the harsh truths most run from and dared to instruct warriors of the social battlefield. Those who cling to softness will shatter beneath pressure. Those who embrace ruthlessness seize survival and dominance. The choice is stark: break or become the breaker. There is no middle ground. This binary nature of power terrifies people because it eliminates the comfortable middle ground where most prefer to live. They want to believe they can be powerful without being ruthless, influential without being manipulative, successful without being strategic. But this middle ground is an illusion, a temporary refuge that collapses the moment real pressure is applied. Consider the corporate executive who tries to lead through consensus and kindness. They are quickly outmaneuvered by colleagues who understand that business is warfare by other means. Consider the political candidate who refuses to attack their opponents out of principle. They watch from the sidelines as less principled but more strategic candidates claim victory. Consider the entrepreneur who won't make the hard decisions that hurt some people for the benefit of the whole. They watch their business crumble while competitors thrive. The middle ground is not moral high ground. It's no man's land, where good intentions go to die. Contemplate this grim truth. The powerful never asked for compassion. They took power with force, cunning, and unyielding will. Mercy is a luxury afforded only by the weak. This script is your entry into Machiavellian strategy, a path to power carved from the dark, ruthless truths the naive refuse to face. But understand what ruthlessness actually means in this context. It doesn't mean gratuitous cruelty or sadistic pleasure in others' suffering. It means the willingness to do what is necessary regardless of how it makes you feel. It means accepting that your comfort, your sleep, your peace of mind are prices you may have to pay for effectiveness. The ruthless mind calculates costs accurately. It understands that every action has consequences, that every choice creates winners and losers, that leadership often means choosing who gets hurt and how badly. The weak mind pretends these choices don't exist or hopes someone else will make them. Law 1. Seize power. Ruthlessly. Power is never a gift. It is a conquest. In the crucible of crisis, hesitation is fatal. The meek wait for permission to lead. The ruthless seize it by any necessary means. Agathocles of Syracuse rose from destitution by exterminating the city's elite in a single night, an act of savage calculation, not madness. His rule was built on bones, but on bones not only of enemies but of doubt and weakness. This ancient example reveals the fundamental truth about power transitions. They are not democratic processes where authority is peacefully transferred to the most deserving candidate. They are violent ruptures where the old order is destroyed and replaced by whoever possesses the will and capability to impose their vision on reality. Agathocles understood what modern leaders often forget, that power vacuums are filled by those who move fastest and strike hardest. While the existing elite debated and deliberated, he acted. While they sought consensus, he created facts. While they worried about the morality of their actions, he eliminated the possibility of their resistance. This is not an endorsement of literal violence, but recognition of a pattern that repeats across all domains of human competition. The startup that dominates a market doesn't wait for permission from established players. The political movement that changes society doesn't ask for approval from the status quo. The individual who rises to leadership doesn't wait to be invited to take charge. The world rewards the decisive. Those who hesitate become victims. When the moment demands that you break others or be broken, wield your strength with merciless precision. Power resides with the relentless. Will you bite back before you are crushed, or will you shatter under pressure? Consider the moment when someone challenges your authority, questions your competence, or attempts to undermine your position. The natural human response is to hope the challenge will go away, to try to reason with the challenger, or to seek a compromise that satisfies everyone. But these responses signal weakness and invite further challenges. The ruthless response is to crush the challenge so completely that others think twice before attempting similar moves. This doesn't necessarily mean destroying the challenger personally, but it does mean making the cost of challenging you so high that rational people will choose other targets. This principle extends beyond obvious power struggles to every interaction where your position is tested. The employee who consistently misses deadlines is not just failing at their job. They're testing whether you have the resolve to enforce standards. The friend who consistently breaks commitments is not just unreliable. They're determining whether you value yourself enough to demand respect. Law 2. Appear virtuous. Be ruthless. In the theater of power, appearances are more valuable than reality. Machiavelli taught that virtue is often a mask, worn to secure trust and loyalty. Beneath that mask lies the cold heart of calculated ruthlessness. The world judges on image. Mastery of perception is the art of survival. This law reveals the sophisticated nature of true strategic thinking. The amateur believes that power is about open displays of strength, obvious intimidation, and crude domination. But these approaches, while sometimes effective in the short term, create unnecessary enemies and inevitable backlash. The master understands that sustainable power requires the consent, or at least the acquiescence, of those being governed. This consent is much easier to obtain when your ruthless actions are clothed in virtuous justifications and your strategic moves are presented as moral imperatives. Think of Julius Caesar, beloved by the masses yet ruthless in consolidating power, sparing no rivals. His clemency was a strategy as cruel as any sword. To survive amidst wolves, you must master the masquerade of virtue while weaving webs of power in the shadows. Be the lion cloaked in lamb's wool. Caesar's genius lay not in his military victories, impressive as they were, but in his ability to frame his ruthless accumulation of power as service to Rome. When he crossed the Rubicon, he presented it as defending the Republic against its corrupt enemies. When he destroyed his rivals, he portrayed it as saving Rome from civil war. When he assumed dictatorial powers, he claimed to be reluctantly accepting the burden of leadership for the good of the people. Each of these presentations had elements of truth, which made them believable, but each also served Caesar's strategic interests perfectly, which was no coincidence. The master of power learns to align their strategic goals with moral narratives that others can accept and even celebrate. This requires a sophisticated understanding of human psychology. People want to believe that their leaders are acting from noble motives, even when those actions hurt their enemies. They want to support causes that make them feel righteous, even when those causes primarily serve someone else's interests. They want to follow leaders who embody their values, even when those leaders practice very different values behind closed doors. What courage do you have to wield kindness as a weapon? The world adores appearances, but only the ruthless dictate reality. This weaponization of virtue is perhaps the most psychologically demanding aspect of Machiavellian strategy, because it requires maintaining two completely different operating systems simultaneously. On the surface, you must genuinely embody the virtues that inspire others to follow you. You must be generous when generosity serves your purposes, honest when honesty advances your goals, and compassionate when compassion increases your influence. But beneath this virtuous exterior, you must maintain the cold calculation that evaluates every action based on its strategic value. You must be prepared to withdraw your generosity, abandon your honesty, or suppress your compassion the moment they become liabilities rather than assets. Law 3. Master fear. Avoid hatred. Machiavelli's infamous dictum: "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Fear is a blade forged for control. But wield it without precision, and you breed hatred, a corrosive poison that destroys empires from within. This principle is widely misunderstood because most people conflate fear with hatred, assuming that causing fear automatically generates hatred. But Machiavelli drew a crucial distinction between these two emotions and their strategic implications. Fear, when properly calibrated, creates respect and compliance. It establishes clear boundaries and consequences, which most people actually appreciate because it provides predictability and structure. The leader who consistently enforces reasonable standards through measured consequences is feared in the sense of being respected, but not hated. Hatred, by contrast, is generated by actions that seem arbitrary, excessive, or personally malicious. It's the product of humiliation, betrayal of trust, or punishment that exceeds the offense. Hatred motivates revenge and rebellion in ways that simple fear does not. Napoleon Bonaparte ruled by balancing terror with reverence, crushing conspiracies yet inspiring loyalty. Fear captivated the mind. Hatred fueled rebellion. The strategist controls both, never letting fear spill into hatred. Fear is discipline. Hatred is chaos. Can you command terror and respect without crossing that deadly line? Napoleon's approach illustrates the sophisticated application of this principle. His enemies knew that betraying him would result in swift and severe consequences. But his followers also knew that loyalty would be rewarded and competence would be recognized. He was feared by those who opposed him, but admired by those who served him effectively. The key was proportionality and predictability. Napoleon's punishments, while severe, matched the severity of the offense. His rewards, while substantial, matched the value of the contribution. People could calculate the costs and benefits of their actions accurately, which made them more likely to choose behaviors that aligned with his interests. This creates a stable system where fear serves as a deterrent to harmful behavior rather than a constant source of oppression. People avoid crossing clearly marked lines not because they live in terror, but because they understand the logical consequences of their choices. The line between productive fear and destructive hatred is the difference between being seen as a strict but fair authority versus being seen as a capricious tyrant. Cross that line, and you transform every person you've intimidated into a potential assassin. Law 4. Neutralize threats. Swiftly. Threats live closest to power's heart. In allies, friends, even family, delays and doubts are fatal. Napoleon's swift execution of rebellious generals secured his throne. Hesitation would have cost him everything. This law confronts one of the most psychologically difficult aspects of wielding power: the recognition that your greatest threats often come from those closest to you. The stranger who opposes you is an enemy you can see clearly and respond to appropriately. But the ally who betrays you, the friend who undermines you, or the protege who seeks to replace you, these threats are camouflaged by relationship and history. The emotional difficulty of this recognition leads most people to ignore or minimize threats from their inner circle until it's too late. They make excuses for concerning behavior, rationalize away warning signs, and convince themselves that loyalty and affection will overcome ambition and self-interest. But proximity to power creates its own pressures and temptations. Those who are close enough to see the leader's vulnerabilities are also close enough to exploit them. Those who understand the leader's methods are also positioned to turn those methods against them. Those who have been trusted with important responsibilities have also been given the tools to do serious damage. Hold no illusions. Hesitation invites the dagger in your back. Strike first, strike hard, strike decisively. Remove threats with surgical ruthlessness before they strike you. Power demands you walk alone in mistrust. Trust kills. Vigilance is survival. This doesn't mean paranoid hostility toward everyone in your orbit, which would be both exhausting and counterproductive. It means developing the ability to separate personal feelings from strategic assessment. The person you like, respect, or even love may still represent a genuine threat to your position. Your emotional attachment to them doesn't change this calculation. The strategic mind develops early warning systems that detect shifts in loyalty, ambition, or capability before they become acute threats. It pays attention to changes in behavior, unusual questions, new relationships, and altered patterns of communication. It takes preventive action while threats are still manageable, rather than waiting until they require dramatic responses. Sometimes this preventive action involves removing the threatening person from positions where they can do damage. Sometimes it involves changing their incentives so that threatening you becomes contrary to their interests. Sometimes it involves demonstrating the consequences of disloyalty to discourage others from similar calculations. Law 5. Control information, shape reality. The crown of power is narrative control. Truth is not fixed. It is forged by those who dictate perception. Modern rulers and CEOs craft myths, suppress damaging truths, and dominate media to control reality itself. In the information age, this principle has become more important than ever before. The leader who cannot control the story being told about them, their organization, or their actions, will find themselves constantly responding to narratives created by others. This puts them in a perpetually defensive position where they're explaining rather than leading. But information control goes deeper than simple public relations or media management. It extends to controlling what information reaches decision makers, how that information is framed and interpreted, and what options are presented as viable or desirable. Consider how this works in a corporate environment. The executive who controls the metrics by which performance is measured effectively controls how reality is perceived by boards, investors, and employees. The manager who controls what information flows up the chain and what information flows down shapes the understanding and options of both superiors and subordinates. Whoever controls what is heard, seen, and believed controls power. Manipulate the story, or be manipulated by it. As Machiavelli showed, soldiers fight not just armies, but ideas. Control the mind, own the world. The most sophisticated form of information control doesn't involve suppressing truth, but rather contextualizing it. The same set of facts can support completely different narratives depending on how they're presented, what they're compared to, and what emotional framework surrounds them. A declining sales figure can be presented as evidence of management failure, or as proof that the market is becoming more competitive, requiring stronger leadership. A controversial decision can be framed as necessary pragmatism or dangerous recklessness. A successful outcome can be attributed to good strategy or lucky circumstances. The leader who masters this skill shapes not just what people know, but how they think about what they know. This is far more powerful than simple propaganda because it operates at the level of cognitive frameworks rather than just specific beliefs. Law 6. Emotions are tools, not chains. Emotions enslave or liberate. Machiavelli warned, "Rulers who act on passion perish. Those who wield emotions strategically thrive." Ruthlessness requires emotional discipline, a cold calculation, even as you manipulate love, hate, and pride in others to your advantage. This law addresses perhaps the most fundamental challenge of leadership: maintaining strategic clarity while operating in emotionally charged environments. Every significant decision creates emotional responses in yourself and others. These emotions provide important information, but they can also cloud judgment and lead to impulsive actions that serve no strategic purpose. The undisciplined mind becomes a slave to its emotional reactions. It responds to anger with anger, to fear with panic, to excitement with recklessness. It makes decisions based on how things feel rather than how they actually are, or what outcomes they're likely to produce. The great leader is the master sculptor of feelings, a puppeteer who wields human desires and fears like weapons. Can you sever your heart from your instincts to command others? Hearts, the strongest shackles, are forged from emotions unchecked. This mastery operates on two levels simultaneously. First, you must develop the ability to experience emotions without being controlled by them. You can feel anger without acting angrily, experience fear without being paralyzed by it, enjoy success without becoming reckless from overconfidence. Second, you must develop the ability to generate appropriate emotional responses in others to achieve your strategic objectives. Sometimes this means inspiring confidence and enthusiasm. Sometimes it means creating concern or urgency. Sometimes it means generating respect through controlled displays of strength. The key insight is that emotions are not random forces that happen to you. They're psychological tools that can be wielded deliberately, just as you might use fear to motivate performance, love to build loyalty, or pride to encourage excellence. You can use any emotion strategically if you understand its triggers and effects. Law 7. Trust is a calculated risk. Trust is a currency more volatile than gold. In power's game, allies are often enemies in waiting. Machiavelli counseled guarded alliances, trust only when it serves, test loyalty relentlessly, and betray before betrayal finds you. This final law addresses the paradox at the heart of all leadership. You cannot achieve significant goals entirely alone, but every person you rely on represents a potential point of failure or betrayal. You must build alliances and delegate authority while maintaining the awareness that your allies' interests may not always align with yours. The naive approach to this dilemma is to trust completely or not at all. Complete trust leaves you vulnerable to betrayal and exploitation. Complete distrust makes collaboration impossible and ensures that you'll be outcompeted by those who can build effective teams. History is littered with kings undone by misplaced trust. The wise ruler balances dependency with suspicion. Trust is a tool to wield, not a gift to give. To lead is to be forever vigilant. The sophisticated approach is to treat trust as an investment that can be increased or decreased based on performance and changing circumstances. You begin relationships with limited trust and expand it gradually as people demonstrate reliability and alignment with your interests. You also maintain the ability to withdraw trust quickly when circumstances change. This requires developing systems that allow you to verify claims, monitor performance, and detect shifts in loyalty before they become problematic. It means structuring relationships and responsibilities so that betrayal becomes difficult and costly for others, while remaining relatively easy for you to detect and counter. The goal is not to live in constant suspicion, which would be both exhausting and counterproductive, but to maintain what might be called strategic paranoia. You hope for the best while preparing for the worst. trusting people to act in their own interests, and aligning those interests with yours whenever possible. The world reveals itself cruelly in moments of trial. Either you break or you become ruthlessly unbreakable. Comfort is a siren drowning clarity, illusion, a veil blinding survival. These moments of trial come to everyone, though they take different forms. For some, it's a business crisis that threatens their livelihood. For others, it's a political challenge that threatens their position. For many, it's a personal betrayal that shatters their assumptions about human nature. In these moments, all the comfortable beliefs about fairness, morality, and human goodness become luxuries that reality can no longer afford. You discover whether your principles are deeply held, convictions that can guide you through darkness, or merely social conventions that collapse under pressure. The revelation is often shocking. People you trusted reveal themselves as opportunists. Systems you relied on prove to be fragile or corrupt. Values you thought were universal turn out to be cultural preferences that dissolve when survival is at stake. In this stark landscape, only ruthless clarity endures. The truth demands there is no middle ground. Either command the storm or be crushed beneath it. This clarity is not pessimism, but realism. It's not the belief that humans are inherently evil, but the recognition that humans are inherently self-interested and will act accordingly when circumstances require it. It's not the abandonment of morality, but the understanding that morality is a tool for organizing social behavior, not a natural law that governs the universe. Choose ruthlessness or choose oblivion. There is no mercy in power's domain. The ultimate question is this: will you shatter or become the unyielding breaker? Power rewards cold-eyed clarity and punishes softness. Survive ruthlessly or be forgotten forever. This choice, once made, transforms everything. It changes how you evaluate opportunities and threats. It alters how you build relationships and make decisions. It affects how you spend your time and allocate your resources. Most importantly, it liberates you from the exhausting effort of trying to be liked by everyone and respected by no one. It frees you from the impossible task of achieving significant goals without hurting anyone. It releases you from the burden of pretending that the world operates according to principles it demonstrably ignores. The ruthless path is not easier than the soft path, but it is clearer. You know what you're doing and why you're doing it. You understand the costs and benefits of your choices. You operate from strength rather than hope, from calculation rather than wishful thinking. And in the end, when others break under pressures they refuse to see coming, you remain standing, unshakable and unbroken, master of your fate and commander of your circumstances. This is the only victory that matters. This is the only strength that endures. This is the only freedom that cannot be taken away. The choice is yours, but choose quickly, because the world will not wait for your decision.